Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary Club of Worldwide Impact, and we're excited to share our mission and the work we do as part of the Rotary International family with you today. My name is Dewin Justiniano, and I'll be your host for today's speaker series. Rotary International is a global network of more than 1.4 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers in more than 46,000 clubs around the world. And all of us making a positive impact in our communities and worldwide. As a Rotary Club, we approach every conversation as an opportunity to learn and to grow together. Our goal is to connect with amazing and inspiring speakers, often with a message focused on the power of ideas to change lives and ultimately to change the world, and to bring you a little bit of inspiration that allows you to think a little bit more in how you can make a difference. Whether you're tuning in through your favorite podcast, watching on us on YouTube, or visiting our website, we're glad you're here. And if you're enjoying our speaker series, why not spread the word? Tell a friend, share it with a family, and drop us a great review and rating. We love those 5 stars in our platforms. Today, we're honored to have with us Vlad Popovic. He is the CMO and board member of Amber, a global game development company with more than 1,200 professionals across 4 continents. He's also the co-founder of Cubis, a prominent independent full-service communication agency in Romania and also in the United States. Vlad is also part of the Rotary family. He is the Rotary Public Image Coordinator for Zone 21A, supporting all the regional communication efforts. Vlad has an incredible story to share about bringing people of action to life, and we cannot wait to hear more about it. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired. Thank you for joining us tonight, and let's get started. Vlad, welcome again. The mic is yours.
Thank you, Devin, for the invitation. And I know that Sam is not present on this meeting, but I also want to thank him for spotting me in a Serbian institute and having me here. So I'm very happy to see you all. And I'm very excited to talk to you a little bit about storytelling and my experience in storytelling. So today I want to walk you through an interesting journey about how you can create powerful stories, what challenges the Rotary brand has at the global level, and also some best practices in video content and how to measure the results of our content that we produce. So Devin, thank you for the introduction. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vlad Popovic. I'm coming from Romania. I have more than 25 years experience in marketing, technology, advertising, and gaming. I'm also co-founder of a couple of startups in the tech area, and I'm also member of the International Advertising Association and Community International Network, which is the leading network of independent agencies here in Europe. And I'm very excited to be here and talk to you about storytelling. But before jumping into the main topic, I want to talk to you a little bit about how can Rotary Public Image coordinators and their assistants and the marketing teams inside Rotary can help Rotarians, clubs, presidents, DGs, and so on, because I do believe we have an important mission to help you guys. So, as public image coordinators, our role is to support you in elevating the visibility and impact of the amazing work that you guys do in your districts, in your clubs, in your communities. And public image is not only about branding or social media or advertising. It's basically about telling the story of Rotary in a way that resonates with your communities and inspires more people to join our cause, either by becoming members or donating or becoming partners and so on. So here are a couple of areas where we can help you whenever you need our support, obviously. The first area is more on strategic guidance on crafting and sharing compelling stories, because I do believe that every project, every event, and service initiative has the power to change lives. And by telling those stories effectively, we obviously can build stronger connections with our communities. So basically, we can validate your team's work, such as developing communication plans, identifying key messaging, or identifying the right platforms to amplify impact into your communities. The second area is basically to help you or to support you in providing practical tools and best practices and resources to do your job. I know that most of you are very familiar with the Brand Center or Rotary Resources, which is very important, and that's a big library of useful stuff. But there are also a lot of other tools that can help you generate better content, like generative AI agents or different other professional tools that we can advise you to use so you can make your life easier, but also make more impact with your projects. A third area would be basically to facilitate trainings for you and your teams. And here, what we do usually, we schedule workshops on public speaking, social media management, and even crisis communication strategies. So in this way, we help you and leaders and members to feel confident in their roles as Rotary ambassadors. And last but not least, we want to be a sounding board in such a noisy space. So reach out for advice on branding, media relations, or just navigating communication challenges, because our goal is to make sure that the incredible work that is happening in your districts is seen, is understood, and basically supported by the people who matter the most, the communities. Now, I think that the public image can make a difference, and it's becoming more and more important for a global organization like Rotary International, because it really strengthens the reputation and trust for our brand and for our organization. Public image basically shapes how communities, potential members, partners, and donors perceive our organization. And you will see later on that we are facing some global challenges where public image needs to come in and solve all of that. The second area where public image is critically important is when we are attracting members or trying to retain existing members. As you know, more and more members are joining Rotary, but every year some members are quitting Rotary. So again, public image is important to keep those checks and balances aligned. In terms of community engagement, you already know having a consistent brand image, having a consistent messaging really strengthens the engagement of the community. And obviously we need that because it's our support. Public image is also important for partnerships and funding. Yes, we need money, obviously, and we need strong partners. So if they see that we have a strong presence and a consistent brand image, definitely this helps. In terms of global advocacy, I believe that a well-defined public image ensures that Rotary's voice is heard in key global forums, helping to advance its humanitarian goals and basically strengthen the influence in the global policy discussions. And last but not least, consistency, consistency, consistency. I am sure that you all know that one weakness of our organization is basically trying to stay consistent across borders in terms of public image. And this is a very important task because we are a million of members, and sometimes people use the Rotary brand as they consider to be fit. But actually having a brand manual and showing consistent imagery strengthens the brand, globally speaking. Now, going back to what we are here for, I have to say that obviously stories and storytelling are part of our daily life. I mean, you'll need storytelling when pitching something to your partners, or giving a presentation to your staff, or even giving a toast at one of your best friend's wedding, you know. And someday it might be a eulogy that you'll have to deliver. So you never know when you need to tell a story. So these storytelling moments are inevitable, and you need to be ready. You need to practice, but you also need to understand the best practices. Now, in our cases, and in most cases, your audience is primed to listen to you. They're right there, they are facing you, they are giving you their whole attention. Just like we are here now, you guys subscribed to be here, you are interested, you are listening because you chose to be here in this call. But how do we keep the connection going when we are competing with a million of other distractions? How do we tell our story in an overcrowded ecosystem where our attention span decreased a lot and it goes up to probably 3 to 5 seconds before we swipe to see another story or another content, you know? That's a big challenge. Now, before we go to the storytelling part, I think that there's something that we need to be aware of in terms of presenting some context that is relevant at the moment for the market and for the global audience. So we need to address some elephants in the room, which are not properly addressed, in my opinion. So one of the first challenge, and I'm going to present just three, but I think that they are utterly important. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now is that we are living in the content overload era. What does this mean? Well, the volume of the generated content by brands, by content creators, or by consumers is increasingly exponentially every year. If you look at this chart, and this chart shows basically what happens over the internet in 60 seconds. This is from 2023 because 2024 isn't updated yet. But you can see that there's a staggering amount of activity that happens online in just 1 minute. We have dozens of platforms and new platforms, and we have an overwhelming flood of information, and everybody is competing for our attention. And actually, since I started to talk like probably 10 to 12 minutes ago, more than 7 billion videos have been watched on TikTok, which is absolutely amazing. And also, all of these content and channels have been accelerated by the rise of the generative AI agents, which I'm sure that some of you, if not all, are using. So now it's very easy for us to correct or make more professional a blog post, create images, create videos, create scripts. It's an incredible time that we're living into, but this only accelerates the volume of the content that is being generated. And actually, there's a certain statistic over the internet that says that year over year, the content that has been generated in the last 2 years is increasing by 30%, which is massive, 30% every year. This means that in 3 years, we will generate double the content that we are generating as we speak. Now, the volume of content is increasing, but our average attention span obviously is decreasing proportionally, I may say. And now we just have a couple of seconds until we get bored of something and then we swipe to the next piece of content. So the first takeout of this major challenge is that brands that want to be heard and seen need to have an exceptionally clear and impactful message right from the start, because otherwise their stories will be just lost among other millions of content pieces that are being generated daily. A second challenge that we are seeing is that obviously Rotary is not alone on this market, on this planet. And while our organization remains one of the most influential organizations in the world, many brands or many NGOs are also making their mark. Some of them focus on specific issues such as sustainability or health, and some are addressing only local problems that have a quick fix. And by doing that, they generate immediate action from their targeted communities. Additionally, we have the rise of the woke brands. Well, we had the rise of the woke brands. Now it's being toned down by the Trump administration, but still that there's a big phenomena about these woke brands, and they are generating significant traction, mainly in the social justice, in the environmental area, and also in the corporate responsibility area. And they target with bold and vocal marketing strategies exactly the people that are the most digitally savvy on the planet, which are the Gen Zs and Gen Alpha. And they are the ones who are participating into these types of actions, and they are showing a great engagement and commitment to these brands. So the main takeout here is that everybody has stories to tell, but those need to be adapted for the right audience and channels. And the third main challenge, I may say, is that we are living in or we are experiencing a gap between the perception and reality. The perception is basically how we as Rotarians are seeing the Rotary organization and brand from inside out, where the reality in most of the cases could be different of what we are feeling about Rotary. So in other words, people that are not members are perceiving our organization not in the way that we would like to be perceived. And because we live in the age of AI, obviously, I tried to ask ChatGPT and other image generators to create images based on this input, which is basically the official definition of Rotary International snagged from Wikipedia. And obviously the definition is correct. But I would like to show what ChatGPT and Gemini draw when I've prompted this input. Just take a look. So basically, if you look on your left side, you'll see like a colorful earth with continents and balloons and happiness and joy. But what you can actually see is that the old logo is in the middle of the screen, which means that trained on historical data, the AI highlights the inconsistency in the application of the brand guidelines by its members. So what I told you in the beginning that we need to be consistent, it's being revealed by how AI is perceiving all this information that is being crunched, showing that in most of the cases, Rotary brand is not being used correctly. And if you look on the right side, you can see again the Earth with the continents, of course, with very inconsistent logos. But if you look closely, you can see that all of these people are not the people of action that we would like the other people to perceive us, but more like old people eating meals in restaurants and having fun. So this is what it's called, you know, the Romeos, the rich old man eating out perception. So if you look at these two images, definitely we as Rotarians, we don't perceive ourselves as being as such, but the AI just painted a reality that is being reflected over the information available on the World Wide Web, that we are not using the logos consistently, and then the perception of us, people of action, is not quite the perception or the reality that it is out there, but more like people hanging out and eating dinners and not being people of action. So that's an interesting reality check that I also encourage you to do. Obviously, I'm sure that as more data is being, trained in these large language models, probably the Rotary brand will start to look correct, and the people of action will start to emerge. But still, this is how the AI based on historical web data sees us. So, that's a big challenge. So we had the content overload era, the fact that we are not alone and we have competition, and the fact that there's a big gap between perception and reality. So we start from here, basically. These are the three main challenges that we need to face before we start telling our story. Now, going to the theme that actually got us here, the art of storytelling, I would like to start with something that is really inspirational for me. And I think that you will also mirror your soul into this. It's a very famous quote from Maya Angelou saying, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So this is so, so real, because feelings and emotions are things that drive a lot of things around us, including ourselves. And I strongly believe that stories that stand out are the ones that are creating strong emotions. Those stories are the ones that make you act, and those stories are the ones that are stuck in your head forever. Those that are creating the emotions, positive or negative. Awareness and advertising is all about word of mouth. And as long as people are talking about something, no matter if it's good or bad, it attracts the attention, and the word of mouth is relevant. I mean, the best example that you can see is from US elections, when Trump was primarily on a negative side, but the attention that his name got was so incredible that contributed actually to electing him as president. So, what is a story? Well, according to an official definition, a story is a true or fictional narrative about people and events, usually including an interesting plot. And of course, stories also have superpowers. A story has the power to connect emotionally with the listener. A story can project images or videos in the mind of the listener. A story statistically can deliver an idea or message more effectively. And a super story can engage and resonate with the listener and inspire people to take action, which is like the highest engagement that you would like to ask from a listener, to take action, to do something. And storytelling, according actually to the National Storytelling Institute, and yes, that's an institute that it exists, it's true. So storytelling is an interactive art of using words and actions to reveal the elements and images of a story while encouraging the listener's imagination and driving emotions. So again, driving emotions is very, very important. And if you think about it, since the early ages, stories have been part of our culture and evolution. I mean, from the word of mouth or the oral version of a story while sitting next to a fire and the dinosaurs crawling around you, like in the early ages. Then we had the cave paintings. Then the people wanted to leave the stories for their next generation, so they invented the hieroglyphs. And then we had the early alphabet, and then we had paintings, and we had printed books, which actually democratized the storytelling process. And then we have photography, radio, color TV, and now the most modern of them all, which is like experiencing the metaverse content, augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on. So I may say that stories have been the bond of our humanity, and I don't think I would be argued against it. So yeah. But have you ever wondered why stories have this great impact on people? Well, actually, it's science. It's pure science. Because when it hears a story, our brain releases specific chemicals that make us feel very different. Usually there are three chemicals that are being released most often. The first one is the cortisol. And the cortisol has the power to wake you up of what you are doing and gets your attention on that story. So it gives you focus on what you're listening. Another chemical that is being released is the oxytocin. The oxytocin is basically a chemical that ignites and fuels your imagination. And the third chemical that is being released is the dopamine. Dopamine is called the arousal drug, which gets your emotions involved and makes you take action. And actually, if the story is good, or if the story has a positive connotation, or if it's cheerful, so it's not a sad story, but if you give it a positive twist, then your brain releases endorphins. And endorphins is basically a chemical that relaxes your body, makes you laugh, makes you feel good. And that's that's the best moment where you can have a call to action, because the brain will tell to the listener, I feel good about it. Let me click on this, or let me follow this call of action that I'm being told to do. So whenever you're telling a story, if you want to get that extra mile, that extra chemical, just try to paint your story in a very positive connotation, because you'll get better results. So let's say I'm making a parallel with a project that you are doing and you want to create a video about it. If the video will show like a very tragic situation, then the video will not be successful. But if you present a pragmatic situation, but then you present the impact of your actions into a positive note, then the brain will relax, and it's more likely that the brain tells the individual to take action. So it's just a small tip, but this shows that actually our brain and heart are hardwired, because storytelling can drive our emotions, can make our brain to react and act. And according to a statistic, maybe 80% of the choices that we make are driven by emotions. And I'm sure that you all have gone through this. And the biggest, let's say, emotion that makes us act in a very foolish way usually is love. And that's a feeling that you never forget. So yeah, it's very important. But what happens before we create the story? Okay, now we know some basic facts and we want to create the story, but it's not the right moment. We would need to know some best practices because before we start doing it. So some of the best practices on the market are telling us that most of the videos that are being created as we speak are less than 2 minutes. We have 5 seconds as a hook before 20% of our audience swipes away from your video. So you have 5 seconds to convince that person not to swipe. So what you say in that moment is very important. 75% of all videos that are played from mobile devices. So whenever you create a story, vertical format is a must. Then there's an interesting statistic that more than 1 billion hours of videos are watched on YouTube every day. This again relates to the content abundance that is happening around us. So how can we stay more focused? How can we penetrate let's say, the attention of a user and make him stay with us and be engaged? Well, obviously through videos. And as you see, videos generate more shares than text and image combined, 12 times more engagement. And also 95% of the viewers retain a message if they watch it rather than 10% when they just read it. So obviously, and you also know as a video content consumers or creators, that video is a must when you're telling a story. Now, we have two challenges basically. We need to create the story and tell our story, but actually the second and maybe the most important challenge is how do we grab the attention? Because we spoke about the content overload era. So many great stories, because they are not properly built, they are just being forgotten or ignored in this big pile of content creation just because they don't follow some best practices. And these best practices are telling us that every video should have a hook at the beginning that usually has between 5 to 10 seconds, depending on the social network we publish in. And this hook usually makes up to 30% of the story. So no matter how good your story is, if you don't have this hook, which is tailored to the social network you're publishing it in, then probably your story will disappear, you know? So this is very, very important. And if we look at the actual anatomy of a video story, it has three important parts. Obviously, the hook, which I mentioned. Then there's the meat part, and the meat basically consists in the actual story. And at the end, of course, we have a very, very compelling call to action. Now, you may ask what the hook could be. Well, usually the hook, and if you are, I don't know, TikTok content consumers or creators, you know that in some cases there's a video of a random guy saying, learn how to land a job interview by doing these 5 tips on your CV. So that's a hook, because if you're interested in finding a new job, then that hook is tailored for you. And I can assure you that you'll spend at least half of the duration of that video just to see what those 5 tips are. Well, in our case, in Rotary's case, the best way to have a very fine hook is to communicate the impact first, which basically every Rotary brand book and RPX is saying. Usually communicate impact. So not the result, but the impact, which is different. So the impact could be, see how we change the face of our community for good in just 2 weeks. So if I'm interested about something related to NGOs or communities or Rotary, I might say, how did they do it in just 2 weeks? Let me check, you know? So that's a powerful hook. And then they transition to the meat part. And the meat part is kind of like usual or a traditional way to tell a story. You need to clearly state the problem or the context before you started to do something. Then you need to state the solution and how you have achieved it, which is basically the journey that you took to solve that problem. Because it's Rotary, I would add also a casual reference about authority. So in other words, we did this because we are Rotary, we are people of action, we have the right to do it because this is our credo, this is our mission, and so on. So this gives you legitimacy of why you are doing what you are doing. And at the end of the meat part, you need to describe obviously the results of your actions and the impact on the extended version. So the result can be we have changed the face of community by adding 3 benches in the park and 2 places for children to play. So this is the result, but the impact is not the same as the result. The impact is by doing this, we bridged the gap from old people and young generation, because the older people started to come in the park because now they have benches, and because we have new playgrounds, the new generation came into the park because they can play. So in this way, we bridged the gap between 2 generations and so on. So you need to present the result and the impact, which usually is different. And of course, at the end of each video, you need to have a clear call to action. It's like what Devin stated at the beginning of this intervention, like, share, recommend this podcast, simple call to actions that don't require too many clicks. The best ideal is 2 or 3 clicks. But in this way, the user that has a positive feeling about what it saw in the video can actually, donate, join as a member, or visit the website, or share the video, and so on. So this is important. And also on the meat part, when you are telling the story, try not to have um, a linear story. You need to imagine that you are taking the user through a journey like in a very rapid river. So you go with him up, you go with him down, you go to the left, you go to the right, because in this way you keep him engaged during your meat part. And at the end, of course, you can present the climax of the story, which is basically the resolution and the impact. So hook, meat, call to action, this is all you need to know. But obviously, this is just the theoretical part, because when you actually start to create a video, you need to take into consideration some important aspects. First, it has to be visual appealing. You need to use high quality visuals. You need to be consistent with the branding. Sometimes, depending on the social channel you are posting, you need to add maybe engaging animations just to catch the user's eye. Then the sound design is also very important, because if you have a background music that is elevating you and presents the content and the video in a very appealing way, then the user feels stimulated about what he's seeing. And of course, at the end, add subtitles and captions, because according to a statistic, probably the majority of the viewers are seeing videos in busy contexts and they cannot hear it. They have like a very noisy room. So showing captions and subtitles is very important for them to understand what is happening in the video. It's not mandatory, but usually it brings you 5 to 10% more engagement if you add them. I know it sounds silly, but put them in because they're important. And of course, because we're living in the content overload era, less is more. So depending on the audience that you are targeting, obviously you need to select some channels for distribution. And the most impactful channels are obviously the social media channels. So these are some best practices lengths of videos that you can apply to different social media channels. Obviously, Facebook is 1 minute. If you go on TikTok and you cannot convince somebody in 15 seconds, then he will swipe away. And YouTube, for example, is more for long version content. And you can have like 6 or 8 minutes, but again, having the hook first, the meat, and the call to action. So please bear in mind that whenever you are creating your stories, even if they are longer, if you are publishing on these social media platforms, they need to be trimmed out so they are fitted in the best practice of that social media channel. Okay, now we have the story, but is this sufficient? Obviously, you can put more sugar on the cake, so to speak. So each platform has its own best practices and user persona targets. So you need to tailor your videos by length, message, and visual style, depending to where it will be posted. My recommendation when you are trying to be viral and get your message out quickly is to use TikTok, because it has an incredible viral power and it can spread actually globally if you can use correct tags and if you are piggybacking on a trending topic, let's say. Then there's Instagram, then Facebook, obviously, which is a evergreen, but it's descending in terms of engagement, and then YouTube and X. Then another important thing is to use proper keywords and SEO. So optimize video titles, try to make them more punchier, try to add video descriptions and tags for better discoverability on different platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't assume that if you are posting a video on your network, you'll have high engagement. First of all, you'll not have high engagement because each platform has a certain limitation of organic reach. Usually it's between 2 to 5%, and you're only reaching your friends and your communities. But your goal is basically to expand. So my advice to you is whenever you are creating a video, save a little budget so you can use a paid strategy and boost your content to different other audiences or targets. And if you're using an influencer, which is like a great thing to do, you can piggyback on his community so the engagement will be higher and broader. And in terms of engagement and interaction, obviously the call to action is very important. Encourage viewers to like, comment, share the video, because a strong call to action at the end can deliver basically a great conversion. And last but not least, try to measure everything that you do. Try to learn what's working, what can be improved, because at the end of the day, it's a trial and error, a process. So if a video didn't work today, it might work tomorrow with proper taggings, with proper trending topics, and so on. But measure everything that you do. And here, the situation is pretty clear. You can measure the viewers count, like number of views, unique viewers, ideally segmented by age and traffic source. You can see what's the watch time in total or average. You can see the engagement rates, and you can actually track the virality. And it's not only for getting better, but it's also for maybe attracting sponsors, because if you are publishing a story and it has tremendous success, you can go to the partners or sponsors and say, look, we've achieved these results. We believe that if you are with us in a program or you can sponsor us, you also benefit of this exposure and so on. So don't forget to measure and track what you're doing, because it's the best way to improve.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vlad, for sharing with us all these important insights. The power of storytelling goes beyond just a few words. As you mentioned, it's so powerful when we reach and we use the right strategies to go beyond that audience. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm looking forward to hearing some of the questions from the audience. If anyone have a question, you are welcome to use the click option in your reaction icon here in the Zoom platform. And we also have the chat box where you can add your questions. Great. Mr. Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Interesting to see basically the strategy that you can use for reaching more audience. For us as a Rotary Club, like what do you think are the best tools to start with, even with the introduction of AI and new developments in that sense? What for club strategy, what would be the best way to boost the impact?
So it depends. Obviously, each club needs to have like a public image specialist or content creator or somebody on marketing, because they will need to promote your events, your activities, and so on. Well, in most of the cases, it seems that marketing is something that is missing in most of the clubs, because the age of the members is very high, and usually marketing is a rather new industry. So most of these clubs lack of this skill. But with the help of generative AI tools, anybody with a little of imagination can create an image, can create a text or even a video. So the first step would be basically to start creating content. If you don't have a content specialist, or if the Rotary Brand Center is not helpful, just use these tools and start posting, start to see if your content has different reactions. include also a boost budget to promote it to different audiences, because now if you're using Facebook or TikTok, is very easy to, maybe in 3 clicks you can boost your post to different other audience. So you need to start somewhere. If you're not doing it, then you don't know if it's working or not. So these generative AI tools have the power to enrich clubs that don't have the skills necessary to do public image.
Thank you. Yeah.
And just to add here, Pat, something, I know that on a Rotary international level, they're training an AI that it's being trained with the best practices of Rotary. So the Rotarians that would use it, they will be basically according to Rotary guidelines. So if they use that tool, at least they know that whatever they are created, they have the correct tone of voice, they have the correct information and the look and feel. And I know that this is a common initiative at the Rotary International level. And, based on any input, that AI will be able to help anyway.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Patrick, for that question and for those insight, Vlad. That's a very, very important dimension to consider. And a follow-up question in the same line. What would you advise to Rotary clubs that are starting their social medias? What strategies could you share with them in order to create that hook that you mentioned during the presentation?
Well, it really starts with the objectives. I mean, why do you want to post on a certain social media platform? Is it because your club needs awareness, or you want to attract sponsors, or you want to attract members? Because these objectives will first give you um, the channels that you need to use. For example, and this is my recommendation, if you want to attract sponsors, you should have a LinkedIn presence, because they're where the companies are and all the business people and professionals are. So it's more easier to attract sponsorships. If you want just the general awareness, go for Facebook. If you want to attract members that are young or at least mid-age, then use TikTok and Instagram. So once you have these objectives, which are awareness, sponsorship, membership, then those will lead you to the channels. Once you have the channel list, then you need to see, oh, do I have enough resources to create this content, and do I have enough budget to promote some of that content so it goes out of our bubble? If yes, then let's go further. If not, let's provide the necessary tools. If you have the content, if you have the skills, if you have the money, obviously you need to start generated content, and you need to set up a cadence of content generation and trying to see what's the engagement rate for each of the content pieces that you publish. And once you start to see a growing pattern, which means that you are doing something right, then you just need to accelerate the volume of creating that content.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. We also have another question from one of our colleagues, Sandy, and her question is related to what kind of content do you think we should use to invite more people to join Rotary, especially in the context of an international club like ours?
I do believe that virality comes from being authentic. So I don't know how you guys interact, or what's your profession, or how you meet, or what are the topics. But I believe that showing yourselves in a most authentic way really can get more engagement and can attract people like you, because at the end of the day, you don't need only members, you need members that have the same values like you do, because otherwise it will just be a club that is acquiring members on one side and exiting members on another side. So try to show your values as people, and maybe why you are in Rotary, maybe some of your key projects, but have that hook in mind for your audience, be authentic, and you'll get higher engagement. And just to make a parallel, for example, a couple of years ago, all the brands were, on social media, they were trying to create very quality content and involve a lot of production and bling bling and so on. But the actual engagement comes when you are natural, when you are spontaneous, when you don't actually invest too much in the content, but you are more natural. So you can see now that the brands are not using their brand manuals when they are creating content, but they are letting influencers to create that content for them. And usually the influencers have higher engagement on the content versus the brand has. So again, you just need to test and trial and error and see what it works. But again, have the skill set, have some budget, establish some objectives. Don't spread too thin. So try to stay on maybe one or two social channels, but have dedicated presence and cadence of publishing content, because this is the key.
Yeah, I think a lot of Rotary clubs the past year had a lot of issues with Facebook blocking pages because of mocking or copying the logos of Rotary. Do you think that is solved, and do you think that has impacted the presence of Rotary on social media?
For sure, it has impacted that presence, but what I can tell you is that at the Rotary International Center level, there's a department that has a direct connection with Facebook. So all the clubs that have been experienced that and couldn't talk to Facebook because you can actually talk with the chatbot. Now through Rotary International, they can appeal, and the guys at the headquarters are doing an amazing job to get those accounts back if needed. So I can provide you with a contact if unfortunately you will be having this situation or you know somebody in this situation.
Please do, yeah.
Vlad, and we are really wanting to close this question and answer with a really important question. Who's your favorite storyteller?
Actually, I can relate to my mom because she was the one that was telling me stories all the time when I was a little child. And what I did is that I gave her like keywords. I want a story about this, this, this. And my mother would just create a beautiful story with all these keywords. And for me, it was amazing because I was like in awe and listening to her and seeing her moving her hands and lips. I think she's the best storytelling because it was at the right moment with me being a child and looking up to her. So yeah, definitely her.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think a lot of us can relate to having our family members or moms as our best storytellers. Thank you, and thank you everybody for your questions and for joining this recording. If you're inspired to get involved and make a difference in your community, we invite you to learn more about the Rotary International family and about us, the Rotary Club of Worldwide Impact. With that said, I would like to thank Vlad for being here with us today. And let's open our mics and give him a warm virtual applause. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being here with
guys.
us.
You're so
And with
nice.
that, thank you.
There's a follow up from
And
me.
with that, we would like to turn the mic back to you for your closing remarks. The floor is yours again, Vlad.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Devin. I mean, it's exciting to share this presentation with so many clubs. And I have to say that this is a successful presentation. And I have the impression that most of the clubs are struggling to find their way into social media and into storytelling. And it's not only about, numbers, figures, or secret recipes. People genuinely need help on deciphering how they should do it. So that is why we as Rotary Public Image Coordinators try to help them as much as possible. And I'm happy that on my watch and my generation, I have some RPICs that are really into marketing. So they are doing this as a job, and it really makes a difference, because usually you can have a certain position in Rotary, but you don't actually need to be a professional in that position. Well, marketing is like a different animal. You cannot talk about marketing if you are not doing it. So I do believe that having marketers as RPICs is very important. And at the headquarters, they are starting to appoint more and more professionals into this, because they understand the importance of making a difference and telling the story of Rotary.
Thank you so much, Vlad, for inspiring us and sharing the importance of bringing those people of actions, all of us, into a more tangible outcomes. Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for joining us in our speaker series, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining.